Hey, Watkanuradu Zewagwego, and Yawa for being here today for this most important announcement. We're really excited and very happy about what we're going to announce today, which is the fact that we will have $16 million for our new cultural center, museum, theater project here in Kahnawake. And this funding was available through the Cultural Spaces in Indigenous Communities program. And through this, this is about 50% of what we will need for the realization of this new building in the community. And it will definitely kickstart, the fundraising initiative that we've put together, basically a capital campaign. And this gives us, like I said, a much needed boost and to start the process. For myself, being the Heritage Portfolio Chief for the last 12 years and my previous role as Ratitsénhaienhs, I was able to work very closely with Lisa Phillips as the Executive Director of the Cultural Center and being the liaison to the board and, being a constant presence in the previous building and seeing, how outdated and dilapidated the building was becoming and how important it was for us as Kanien'kehá people to have a space to be proud of, to showcase Onkwawén and everything about, our ways and how we come together. And so when I had brought it to the table to say, we definitely need to collaborate and bring other entities to see if we could come up with a multi-purpose building. We had a previous example through our K103 needed a new building where we were able to house the MCK Language and Culture Training Program. So there was already an example set, and we did know that there was a few other organizations in the community that also needed a home of their own, and that being the Turtle Island Theater, as well as our tourism office. So it just made sense for all of them to be housed together in a new state-of-the-art building. Another important component was a museum. We know we have a very vibrant history and culture, and we have so much to showcase. So the fact that we'll have a museum, to have displays and repatriate a lot of our artifacts and things that are out there that might be in museums that are not, Indigenous museums. So for us, it's important that this component was included, and I think it's a testament to the hard work of our previous chief, Christine Zachary-Diome, who was, adamant about this inclusion of the museum. So with that, I'm so excited about the potential and what this building and this project is going to, do for our community in terms of bringing our people together. My understanding is the whole premise of this funding envelope of the Cultural Spaces in Indigenous Communities program is also about inclusion. Two-spirited LGBTQ plus people who feel displaced and that they don't have a safe space to access language and culture is very important. And, for us, inclusion of all people is important. We live so close to a major metropolitan city, Montreal, and all the surrounding communities. People need to learn about who we are as Kanien'kehá people. It's so important, and it'll help us to forge better and positive relations in the future. So with that, just want to say Nyawakoa to the Honorable Minister Miller for being here today, and again for advocating for this important contribution agreement in the amount of $16 million for our project. Nyawakoa.
Thank you, Kahsennenhawe. Up next we have Minister Marc Miller, Minister in Crown Indigenous Relations.
Watkanuradu Zewagwego Nyangoa Ize Ohantu Ihande Ratitsénhaienhs Kahsennenhawe Tanu Ize Seoyataroro. Ogatsanuni Chiskat Negani was Kanien'kehá Owantiage. Aguahigachi rotinigun ragarewa done Onkwawén o niocheraze chi Untitled ronwati teruntakwa tonunwe wa homwatinasko ne rautiwana tanu nihotiri hodans. Izinunwe ne askate wanyana ni osragi ni kariwas koratne rauti korasra tanu yontaranaya takwasuha wahunste Wahunste Yontawea Takwasuha, Ronwati Teruntakwa, ahatigari rautiwana tanu nihotiri hodans ne Onkwawén. Negati Onkwawén ahatiri wasere sunhache ne utsuruni Ratiotitióhkwa nihotiri hodans. Negne otseroni gehatogani Johansaga watunskwe ahuntati ganun sagunsun neronte wayansta. Wahon watirewa te yo satste neronte wayansta tago toga wahuntati rautiwana. Aguahiganchi wahotirun, long word, wahotirun yagan ne ezonihadi. Agari wahet ganhage toganske unwe, tayun deri watetechi nihotia tawan tonunwe. Owana gontihawi ne ogara, raune ya ratsara ne ronatonhetstu. Tanu nahota yetiraratstani ne tahatiko sotunje. Kontigarenyes ne aterian taratsara. Tanu chini hotiri hoda rotikstaha ne nitotunsas nungadi. Ne sewataretsera chiniori ne tagagun soda. I'll translate sort of informally. Languages carry stories, the memories of those that came before us, and the promise that we hold for those who come after us. They convey the wisdoms and traditions from elders to youth and from one generation to the next. That was the last paragraph I said. However, under colonization, under the Indian Act, residential schools and centuries of racism and discriminations have impacted the vibrant diversities, the ones seen on these shores. Now many Indigenous languages are on the brink of extinction. The beautiful language that I spoke is not immune to this threat. Through racist policies, the government perpetuated the loss of Indigenous culture and language and ultimately failed to protect the rights of Indigenous peoples. I know a lot of people would say a $16 million investment today is something that falls in the area of infrastructure and leave it at that, but it's much more than that, and it's the spirit of the envelope today that Kahnawake is the first announcement of, also one of the most important in this country. For decades, Indigenous children were forcibly taken from their families and communities and stripped of identities, cultures, and clothing, language, and tragically, many never returned home. Indigenous communities have long voiced the need for safe, culturally relevant spaces as a key component of moving forward on self-determination. En 2015, le rapport final de la Commission de la vérité et de réconciliation appelait à la création de plus d'espaces éducatifs et culturels pour renverser le déclin des langues autochtones au Canada. Ce besoin a également été souligné dans le rapport final de l'enquête nationale sur les femmes et les filles autochtones disparues et assassinées, qui a appelé à un accès sûr, permanent et significatif aux cultures et aux langues. Les femmes, les filles et les personnes LGBTQIA+, autochtones connaissent des taux de violence plus élevés et sont surreprésentées parmi les victimes d'actes criminels. Le rapport a identifié la perte de la culture, d'identité, de liens familiaux et d'abus parmi les causes profondes de cette tragédie nationale, dont beaucoup ont été perpétués par le système de pensionnat. To advance justice and healing and revitalize Indigenous culture, traditions, and languages, many nations, including Kahnawake, have called on the government to move faster and provide the necessary support to build cultural spaces. And today I'm pleased, within the spirit of that, to announce the government's support of $16 million for the Cultural Spaces and Indigenous Communities program that Kahsennenhawe just mentioned, for the construction of the new cultural center that you've all been fighting for so long, which will not only be that, but a museum and a theater. I mentioned in French the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The Calls to Justice 2.3 calls upon our government and governments to prioritize safe and meaningful access to culture and languages for Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQI+ people. As part of the federal pathway responsive to the inquiry, Budget 2021 announced about $108 million over 2 years, starting this year, to reestablish and revitalize Indigenous languages and culture, especially the spaces dedicated for them to thrive. And today is the very first project in Canada announced under this fund. By investing in these safe spaces for cultural activities, this provides opportunities for, in particular, Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQI+ people to access their culture and language and strengthen identities. The particular space obviously will be Mohawk-owned, Mohawk-run, with Mohawk cultural values informing the policies, programs, and operations. It'll be a safe space for community members to share traditional knowledge and culture, and it'll help tell the story of the Kanien'kehá, the future, so that future generations and the people that live around here can learn about the rich history, culture, and tradition and language of your people. One proposed program will pair first language mentors with second language learners to revitalize Kanien'kehá, and it'll be a place that people will look forward to coming to. The vitality of a language can't be measured in a couple of years. It's measured in generations, one generation passing it on to the next. It's not just about children and youth, although that's an important component, but having older generations learn the language, first language learners, is equally important to reestablish the connections that were broken by policies imposed by our government, such as residential schools that I mentioned in introduction. This will be a safe space for everyone. I'm confident the new center will help Kahnawake to achieve its goals for the preservation, revitalization, and teaching of the Mohawk language. It's only the beginning. Hopefully I can sneak in there from time to time and perfect what I spoke quite broken in the first part of my speech. But I can't wait to visit the center, and I know it'll take a couple of years to complete, but I'm really looking forward to visiting whether I'm still a minister or not.
Thank you, Minister Miller. Next, we have Executive Director of the Kanien'kehá Ratiotitióhkwa Language Cultural Center, Lisa Phillips.
Kawennanó Lisa Phillips, Yujats, and Kanien'kehá Ratiotitióhkwa Language and Cultural Center, Wajote. I want to thank all of you for coming. I'm very excited for today, very nervous. This is news that we have been waiting for a very long time. As Chief Kahsennenhawe and Honorable Minister Miller have said, you know, this has been something that we've been working on for a very long time. It's something that's very much needed. As Kahsennenhawe had stated, being the liaison for KOR for 12 years and also being the Heritage Portfolio Chief, she had first-hand experience over those years within the building that we formerly occupied. Which we all know, we've heard many times, was condemned. Of course, the major work that went in there in the heart of KOR was within that building, so we managed to be able to do the amazing work, you know, that we're mandated to do, you know, with that hard work, the heart and the spirit of the staff and the students and our board of directors. However, you know, after a certain period of time, it becomes hard, you know, to be able to do that work and to remain optimistic and steadfast in that. So this building is very much needed. Marc spoke about generations, you know, and our elders, and I would first and foremost like to speak about our elders who have passed and our elders who are still here. The memory of them is very important to us, and this building is something that they have also wanted. I know when we moved from the former building to this one that we're currently in, which is a temporary location, I know I was asked in an interview what was my favorite memory of the place that I'll take away. And it was completely unexpected, but what I did was I broke out in tears. I started to sob because the memory that I hold most in that old building is our elders and the many, many years of shows that we put on and events. I remember one with Billy Two Rivers being there and Akwesasne coming with a busload of kids from Akwesasne, and when they saw Billy Two Rivers, they lost their minds and went run to him. And he was sitting there, you know, holding court with all these little children around him speaking Kanien'kehá. Those are the memories I'll never forget, you know, or of our elder who just passed recently, Doris Montour, singing to Billy. There's so many memories like that. So it was bittersweet to leave there. You know, it was needed, but that was the memory I hold dear, and that's the memories that we want to take with us and carry forward in our new building with us. That's who KORLCC is. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Yeah, so we know the building is very much needed. We've been waiting for this funding for a long time. We've been working towards this for many, many years, and we knew with the announcement, you know, an approval of funding, that this would propel our project forward. So this is the place where we're at. It's a very exciting news. we're thrilled. We're really thrilled. I want to offer my my Nyawagoa and deepest thank you to the Mohawk Council of Kahnawà, who has been a support for KORLCC throughout this time, throughout the years, every single time that we've gone to the table for this project. And this project has been in the work actively for the past 6 years. It's been in the works for 42 years, but actively for 6. Every single time that we've gone before the chief and council, they've always been supportive of us. They've offered us, and I know she's going to get shy, but the technician from MCK to work on this project, and that's Trina C. Daibo, who has been my partner, who has been the person holding the whip and keeping me in shape, and we've been working towards this very hard for a long time, so I want to give acknowledgement to her. Also, Kahsennenhawe had spoken about the former chief, Christine Zachary Dion, and she was very integral in this as well, in part, and mainly her area of expertise and her area of concern and what she was working towards was the museum. So I want to give acknowledgements to her, and also to our former Grand Chief Joe Norton, who also was a huge advocate and supporter of this project. It's sad that that he won't be here to see it, but his memory for sure is completely wrapped within this project. I also do want to just offer my thanks to Melanie Morrison. She's a woman within our community, from our community, who's been an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women. She also received an International Amnesty Award, of Conscience Award, and this is her area. This is the area that she advocates for, and she's very passionate about. In fact, she's the one person who had come to me and made me aware of this particular funding envelope. And without her, and seeing the value of the cultural center and the museum and the theater, and identifying that this would be a good project for this particular funding envelope, we would not be here today. So I want to thank her, for acknowledging the work that KOR does, seeing the importance of it, being a support of KORLCC, and also, for heading us in the right direction. She unfortunately couldn't be here today. She's actually speaking before Senate this afternoon on this very important work, but she sends her regrets and her support, and she's very thrilled that we have been approved for this funding. This project, again, like I said, has been in the works actively for the past 6 years with feasibility studies and consultation and information sessions and 2 votes within the community. So, today is one of the first steps in announcing this funding for the project. And then, of course, we'll continue to move forward in providing more information and updates to the community and that. So I want to thank my staff, of course, my Kanien'kehá students who have stuck by us throughout all these years, working in not a great environment. But again, they're there for what they believe in, for Dzini and Onkwawén, and I'm very proud to be a part of this family. So Nyawagoa.